marketing, and this is an advanced guide to some of the functionality in Screaming Frog that's a little bit beyond what most beginners have to deal with. In this tutorial, I'm going to use the paid version, and I'll specifically be dealing with crawling larger e-commerce websites. So this video is particularly good for any site owners who own large e-commerce websites themselves and don't really want to depend upon their web developer all the time. If you want to push through some changes and you're not sure whether they've been done or not, or you have 5,000-6,000 products and you can't really keep track of them, but you want to know how prepared you are in terms of SEO, or if the code that you wanted to have implemented was being properly implemented, this video should really help you out. For marketers and for inbound and SEOs, this is a really good video as well if you're dealing with really massive e-commerce websites for some of your clients and you sort of are running into small little issues. So a lot of what I'll cover in this video is how to properly crawl large e-commerce websites. We're talking 5, 10, 20, up to millions of pages on the website. Anything past probably 20, 30,000, you probably want to go for something a little more heavy duty than Screaming Frog, but you can definitely get a lot accomplished through this method. So the first thing that I want to go over is this is the newest version of Screaming Frog 2.50. It's a lot nicer than the old version, I think. You get a handy graph view and a summary view, and they added SERP snippets as well, which is all really awesome stuff for getting actionable information really quickly. And the way that I sort of wanted to jump into this tutorial is basically by just starting with a large e-commerce website and sort of letting the problems roll in as they happen. One of the first things that I'll say is that when you're dealing with a pretty large site, you're going to want to make sure that you're going as fast as you can. Generally, I crawl sites at 12 threads, and you want to be respectful. So you want to do this during off hours. I wouldn't do it from anywhere between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. I'm on the West Coast just because I have East Coast clients and 9 a.m. might be a peak time for them. So I'm really not trying to disturb anyone. And I also, a lot of this video is sort of given with the caveat that you're either working for one of your clients and you sort of want to just jump right into it. For me personally, I know sometimes I have to wait for a web developer to get back to me, or if you have less technical members of your team and jumping through a SQL database for product information isn't really a viable option, Screaming Frog will kind of let you get the information right away. And on the flip side, if you're a site owner and you sort of have a web developer but you haven't talked to them in a while, or your site was built a really long time ago, or any of the sort of hundreds of issues that can come up for someone that owns a business but doesn't actually do the programming and developing, Screaming Frog really gives you a nice back-end view and gives you a sense of what Google's doing without you having to learn HTML and PHP and all the other basic programming languages that are out there. So jack up the speed. I would go with 12 threads. I find that that's pretty stable, and right away we're going to encounter the first problem, and this is a really common problem that people have. What you'll see right here is this 403 forbidden issue, and basically what that is that the website operator, the person that one of my clients has basically rented the site from, has made it so that their website can't be crawled, which is great because it keeps competitors from sort of monitoring our pricing and having all these bidding wars. But if you want to know whether you're ready, you have SEO issues on site, it can be really annoying. So one of the first things that I actually end up doing with a lot of websites that I crawl is switching the user agent. I usually go with Googlebot, but you can also go with BingBot. And once you do that, immediately the issue kind of goes away and you can start crawling stuff. Now, this is really convenient. I'm not sure, it seems a little gray area to me, so I really hope they don't take away the feature because it's immensely useful. But when you switch user agents, it's basically identifying yourself to the site as if you were Google. Everyone wants to be crawled by Google, so you can typically get information. And again, I'm expecting that you're either working for one of your clients or this is your website. You just have various issues that sort of keep it from being convenient for you to crawl it in a regular way. Now, I want to draw your attention to the second very common issue that a lot of people run into. So I'm going to pause this real quick. Now, a lot of times when you're dealing with extremely large websites that are sort of dynamically generated, let's say we have 40, 50,000 products on our website, when you start getting into product comparisons or reviews or contact us pages, basically you start getting a lot of duplicate URLs. And so what you'll find using Screaming Frog is that, this number eventually just isn't going to go down. So I've had people come to me on the team with, 120,000 page crawls of websites that I know are only 5,000, 6,000 pages. I know only have so many products on them. And basically what has happened is that we've gotten all these duplicate files that are sort of just comparison pages, dynamically generated, really have no value from an SEO perspective. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to show you one really handy trick that I always use. And this is the exclude function. So you're going to want to copy this URL and then you're going to want to go to exclude. Now, what you see here is that this extremely long URL is basically, after a certain point, it's only echoing one singular folder. So what we're going to do here is we're going to basically try to find where the problem is. And for this website, it's the UENC. So I know that everything after this is basically just dynamically generated mumbo jumbo, right? And I'm looking here back at the actual listing, right, and I see this popping up multiple times. So what you're going to want to do basically is exclude any file that's going to be dynamically generated off of that folder structure. So if I press OK and then clear and then start again, I'm not going to get that folder. But there's the caveat that this is probably going to happen several times. I know with a lot of websites I've dealt with, the issue sort of keeps creeping up. You can see other sort of architectural file types just like that. So actually what we want to do is probably block out the product compare, if you see that right here. And so one of the things I'll say about the exclude is that you want to basically, when you're first running a crawl, you kind of want to sit here for the first 4 or 5 minutes and make sure that you're excluding all these sort of annoying dynamically generated duplicates that might creep up on you. And that's sort of the best way to make sure that you're getting a very clean crawl of your website. Now I'll show you one other trick that if you're not as technically savvy and comfortable, it's a pretty fast way to also sort of eliminate weird dynamically generated URLs. Now this isn't the sort of ideal method. The first one I showed you is definitely the best way to do it, but this is kind of the quick and dirty way to get rid of problem URLs. So jumping back to the URLs that we've pulled so far, you've seen that these UNC ones are extremely long, right? And we have much shorter ones in general. So one of the things that I often do is if I just exclude any URL with a character length, that would be like there are 4 characters in the word name. If the character length of the URL is past 145, if I just click OK and exclude that from the crawl, that basically takes care of these super long annoying URLs that I have. Again, you'd have to play with this, and it's not always safe because sometimes you just have really long product names, but in general this is a pretty easy fix if you're not too technically savvy, you're not comfortable running down the file structure, but it works sometimes. So I'm going to jump off this website and then go to another website and show you another pretty common issue that I've seen creep up with people with these larger sites. So what's going to happen when I crawl this site, and I actually see this quite a lot with sort of older e-commerce sites that have a lot of products where the owner hasn't really paid a huge deal of attention to the server stuff, and because of that we get these issues where basically when you're running through the site you start pulling all this like null connection timeout information. Basically what's happening here is that we're quote-unquote crawling the website too fast. But if we crawled the website more slowly, we would obviously be at it for days because we're dealing with tens of thousands of pages. So the best way to deal with this is to go up to your Configurations tab, click on Spider, and then go to Advanced, and then Response Timeout. Now, this might seem a little weird, but sometimes I just jack this up to 120 seconds because, as I said at the very beginning, we set 12 threads, so it's not really going to slow us down too much in total, so we can sort of afford to wait for some of these pages to come through. So now it's going to take a second to sort of start up again, but what will happen is that we will actually get a complete crawl of the website because we haven't sort of limited ourselves by the load speed of some of the slower web pages. Now, it's really good to be aware of where your site is extremely slow, but I think from a pure SEO perspective, especially as a site owner, you want to make sure that all your products are being correctly indexed. I've had multiple client websites where there were slow servers operating on the back end for them, so that when I was crawling the website, it looked a lot smaller than it seemed to me. And after sort of finicking with it in the same process that I've showed you here, where I've eliminated duplicates and I've also upped the timeout, I see that, let's say we have 17,000 pages on the website, whereas Google probably only thinks we have 6,000. So after doing the clean crawl, I come up here to the Sitemaps tab and then click on Create XML Sitemap and basically take that .xml file, upload it to Webmaster Tools, and suddenly the amount of pages that I'm having indexed just shoots up. So that's a really nice fix, especially my theory there being that Google is probably crawling sites very quickly. If you have an older website, you might be under-indexed, especially if the timeout's higher, but it seems to be that when you sort of submit a better sitemap, you get a better crawl out of Google. So those are the three main issues that I've typically encountered when dealing with larger e-commerce websites. Either the user agent is being blocked and the solution there is to sort of switch to Google, or you're just getting all these different dynamically generated URLs that are either product comparisons or they're asking you to give reviews, and they're not really helpful from an SEO perspective, but they are making it so that you can't actually crawl the site effectively. And the third really common issue is timeouts with sort of older websites or with poorly made websites that just have a bad architecture. And so after I've gotten my crawl and I've sort of dealt with all the weird duplicate issues that I might have, there's two things that I typically do. What I really like about the new version of Screaming Frog is that I get a nice sort of summary of all the information on this right tab right here. I can see which title tags are missing, which ones are too long, and sort of do the same with meta descriptions and get good information on H1s and H2s. So if you, as a site owner, just want a quick little overview of everything that's happening, you can just jump down to the Reports tab and then go to Crawl Overview, which gives you a nice sort of summary of the information. And what I always do as well is I go to meta descriptions and I sort of look at what the big problems are on the website. Typically, it's missing duplicate or over 156 characters. Now, a lot of people like to sort of export the entire website, but I find that it's just too clunky when you're dealing with anything over 10,000 pages. You know, if the website has 30,000 pages and you're going to need to shoot this out to someone on your team to fix 1,000 or 2,000 title tags over the next month or a couple weeks, right? You're not going to want them to be dealing with the whole huge, you know, master file of the crawl. So typically what I do is just select tab by tab. You know, if there's missing issues, if there's duplicate issues, and if there are over 156 character issues, I kind of export all three typically, do the same with page title tags. I also go over to images as well and do the same thing there. If any of them are missing, I sort of export that list and we make sure that all the problems get solved. Now, there's one other thing that I want to touch on, especially for site owners, again, who want to have a little bit more control when dealing with their large e-commerce website. So a really nice feature of Screaming Frog is under this configuration tab, if you go to custom, you can basically put in HTML filters on pages. So let's say that we were supposed to have upgraded to the latest version of analytics, but we have a really large site. You know, no human could reasonably check everything on the site in any actionable amount of time, right? So let's say we're worried about having urchin.js files still from who knows how many years ago. We're worried about having the old analytics, and let's say we added, 100 new products over the weekend, but we're not sure whether every single one of those products has a contact us page, right? So these three things basically allow us to make this custom filter so we can check the pages as we go through them for this information. So this way, if you see basically a page that's pulled up that has the urchin.js, you know basically it still has some old analytics code on there you're going to want to get rid of. If you see the ga.js, you know that it has the old universal analytics that you're going to want to get rid of, and you're going to want to upgrade to the latest version. So you missed some spots if the entire website isn't dynamically generated. Or let's say if you added some products and you're not seeing a contact us page on the contact us form on that page, but you know it should be there, that sort of highlights issues. There are a lot of ways to use this custom filter creatively, but that's sort of gives you a good sense of some of the really common ways that I use it every day. All right, so if you have any questions, please feel free to include them in the comments below, and I hope that was helpful. Thank you.